Well, we've got the return of Coffee Club back here in Bella Vita in Glasgow. Restaurant Bill Leckie makes his long-awaited return. We had
Yeah.
Chris Boyd 2 weeks ago. We had David Friel
They,
last week.
they were all right.
Were they okay? They stepped in?
I watched
What
it,
did you think?
The boy Boyd, I don't think he's ready for big time telly yet.
First time action.
Aye, it was. They both made you look very good.
Did they?
Aye.
I like to think it was more in doing, but there you go. Listen, it's great to be back anyway. We're here. We've got a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
Big news this morning. We're hearing Manchester City, of all teams, are having a look at Kyogo, Celtic's main striker.
Wow.
Big story. We'll see how that develops. But initially, you think it's surprising, but then equally, if Man City are looking for a penalty box goal scorer to be substitute for Erling Haaland, then does Kyogo fit the bill?
Well, they couldn't be much different in terms of stature,
physique.
However, if they've lost Alvarez, they don't have another centre forward. They get rid of the boy Delap who went to Ipswich, so they don't really have a centre forward kicking about. And if you're looking for someone who you can, the way that they play, pinging the ball about, knocking the ball across the 6-yard box, Kyogo's as good as anybody for getting in there and scoring. And I've got to be honest, if I was Celtic and somebody made me a decent offer for him, I think I might just take it.
What are we talking? What do you think would tempt Celtic? Because at the minute, Kyogo's their main striker. I know
25.
They've signed 25 million.
25.
Would that do it? I mean, where would that leave Celtic though? They've signed Adam Ida last week, a long-awaited signing which they brought in. They're very different types of players.
Yes.
Where would that leave Celtic if they were to cash in? Is it a no-brainer if they go off that kind of money they sell? Yeah. But where would it leave them? Because
well, it leaves them with 20.
They'd be short.
It would leave them with 25 million to go and.
But money's not an issue.
Money's not an issue. But what I mean is, it leaves them with even more money in the bank to go and replace Kyogo. I'll be honest. I think Kyogo's injury record, especially with his shoulder, must be starting to get a bit of a worry for Celtic. I think from his point of view, if he was to go somewhere like Manchester City, it'd be fantastic for him. He wouldn't be expected to turn out 90 minutes and take the brunt of things every week. He might be half an hour here and there. He might be playing cup ties. I don't think he's a player with a massive ego.
No.
And I think it could be a great move all round for everybody.
Yeah, I do think though that if Celtic have to sell to Kyogo for whatever much money, and if they get £25 million, it does represent great business.
Yeah.
But the fans would be expecting someone else to come in, and in the minute Celtic can't make signings, they're struggling to. They've got the money to spend. Clearly, they've got money to spend, but they're struggling to get players that they the value that they're willing to spend. And I think it would be an issue for. We've not got long before the transfer window.
You're more at the sharp end of these things than I am. Why do you think they're struggling to spend money?
I think they're just what they're looking for. They're looking for that £6 million player, but at a level where the wages aren't extraordinarily high.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that's an easy thing to do. As much as people are critical of Celtic, myself included, you think you've got money to spend, go and spend it. But it's not the easiest thing in the world if you actually think about it. If they go and get that level of player who's willing to come to Celtic, it's not as easy as I think some people make out. So you say if Celtic sell Kyogo for £25 million, great, go and spend £6 million on a striker. Well, Manchester City are struggling to get that player.
That player has just left Aberdeen.
Yeah,
to go to Spain.
That ship sailed.
That ship has sailed. And that was one where, and I wonder sometimes whether, in Celtic terms and Rangers terms, when they've been in the position to spend that kind of money, they've sometimes not been able to see the wood for the trees, and they're looking for that spectacular signing from somewhere off the grid. And there's a guy like Miovski who was sitting here who I think would score bucket loads of goals for either of the offer.
Yeah, that ship is sailing. I'm saying Manchester City are struggling. They're in a different ballpark. That's not quite true. They're in a different ballpark in what they're looking at.
But you're right. They could afford just about any striker in the world. But he's not that kind of manager, is he? Guardiola
doesn't. At the same time, any striker that goes to Man City is going to Man City, but it's second fiddle to
absolutely.
Haaland. But if you go to Celtic, you get as a main striker potentially, then you're going to be playing a lot of games.
Yeah. I think it'd be an amazing move for Kyogo if he get a chance to go.
Yeah, but I do think it would certainly put pressure on the Celtic board to get a replacement. I don't think they could afford to sell Kyogo and not bring anyone else in and just say, well, Adam Ida's now our main striker.
No.
I think it would put pressure on the Celtic board because they've not done a whole lot of business. If they sell Kyogo and bring in a couple of players, Luke McConnell and McCowan, and a couple of players. I think it's got to be better than that. But then I think it has to be better than that for Celtic fans anyway, regardless of whether they sell Kyogo or not. I think they do need to do a business now. I think that's what Brendan Rodgers is pretty much saying. This quite kind of quietly when he's speaking. He's not throwing toys out of the pram when he's speaking, but he's been very clear that Celtic need to do business.
Absolutely. And it might well be at this stage of the window that if something as surprising as this was to come off, that they might have to go to for instance, down to the English Premier League and look at taking the loan of a second or third choice striker at one of the top clubs. And I think Chelsea might have 17 or 18 who you could go and borrow. But that might be the way they have to go.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting one. I mean, I think as well it's worth pointing out Kyogo moved agents fairly recently. That doesn't happen by accident. If a player moves agents, then usually that means there's things going on in the background. So listen, we'll wait and see with that one. It's certainly a
great story.
It's a great story. We'll be looking more into that this afternoon for tomorrow's paper and online. So we'll see how that one plays out in the next few days.
Absolutely. Talking of stories that you break, which you do with great regularity. Last week when I was away in Norway, you broke the story about the Old Firm games, the fans not being allowed, the away fans still not being allowed in, which I find one of the enormous embarrassment for Scottish football that they can't sort this out. What's your kind of take on where this goes and what it means?
Well, it doesn't go anywhere now. I mean, the SPFL got involved. They had to get involved last week after the story came out. They knocked some heads together to a certain extent, but then again, not really, because the SPFL, when it comes to Rangers and Celtic,
have no power.
They don't have no muscle there. So basically, the next two games, the game at Celtic Park on September the 1st.
Yeah.
No fans.
Next weekend.
And the game against the Old Firm game at Ibrox will be the same. And then after that, the subsequent two games of the season will have fans.
But you know, it feels as if it's, even when it does come in, as if they're both doing it very grudgingly. It's like, well, if we need to.
No, listen, I think there's definitely a push towards getting fans back in. I think both clubs, Celtic clearly from the outset wanted fans in that game. Rangers were kind of less. They moved the goalposts initially, and that's where Brendan Rodgers was coming from when he spoke about it last week. They started it essentially. But yeah, I think there's an acceptance with a bit of pressure from Sky Sports.
Absolutely.
I believe that they want fans back in, and I think fans will get back in. It's never going to get back to the way it was when 7,000 at both stadiums. That's just not going to happen again, but they'll get back.
Why do you think that would never happen again?
Well, Rangers, I know, have sold season tickets for that section of the ground, and they're looking after their own fans to a certain extent, and we've seen more and more clubs do that recently.
I have to say that would be at the moment, that's a rare thing to say about Rangers looking after their own fans.
Well, what I mean is that's true, but what I mean is they've sold season tickets for that part of the ground.
Absolutely.
And saying, well, we want our fans at Old Firm games.
But then in the past, season tickets were sold
without those games.
But on the basis of without those games.
Yeah,
because they knew that the Broomloan.
Rangers essentially took the decision because they didn't want the whole stand housing 7,000 Celtic fans. I think when Celtic were the dominant team.
Absolutely. In terms of the security side of it, I would have thought it's easier to police an entire stand full of fans rather than wedging
probably is,
a couple of thousand in between, home fans on either side. The whole thing becomes fraught, and also the more of a sort of fight it is between the clubs, the more it creates a nasty atmosphere when the fans do come back to away games.
Yeah, well, listen, it's the way it is. I don't see us getting back to that stage anytime soon.
I think
I think it's going to be a couple of thousand, 2,500, 3,000 at each stadium. Not the next two games, but from after that, I think that will be the case. But the situation arose with Celtic. Well, I've put the work in, paid the money to get some measures put in place at Celtic Park ahead of the September game, and they don't believe that Rangers have done the same thing. So there's a trust issue there. You can argue rightly or wrongly, but that's certainly an issue. But yeah, it's a shame. We've been to those games, we go to those games, and as much as you've got your firm views on the Old Firm game,
absolutely,
it's a better spectacle when there's more Rangers fans at Celtic Park and more
100%.
Celtic fans at Ibrox.
And I have to say, I know what Brendan Rodgers was doing the other day, but I don't think it does anybody any good when and they've both done it over the years with various things. They started it. It wasn't us. It's so schoolboy. I think it doesn't do anything for the image of the two clubs.
Well, they have to. They certainly have to get beyond that, and I think they will. As I say, it'll be for the next 2 games anyway, and then we'll see where we are with that. But listen, there's a lot going on at Rangers.
Huge amount.
At the minute, there's a lot of work to be getting done behind the scenes. The Steel finally arrived this week. We believe that they're on course to get back into Ibrox by the end of September. All right, September.
This September.
September 2024. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Because Hampden's not working for them.
No, it's not. It's not. You saw. I mean, I don't know how many people would have been at Ibrox for that St Johnstone game at the weekend, but you could have put the kettle on for the fact that you would have had 20,000 or less, 5:45 live on TV, rainy Saturday.
Season tickets don't count.
Season tickets don't count.
The crowd would be down anyway. Even if it was Ibrox, the crowd would be down.
But at the moment, it seemed to just epitomise everything that was wrong with the situation. And what really shows you at Hampden is, even at the Dynamo Kiev game, is the spaces behind both goals.
Yeah.
Because again, we're talking about those stands, Copeland Road that's been done up, the Broom Loan, it's the subject of the hassle over the Celtic fans. Those stands have great views and they create a lot of atmosphere at Ibrox. The 2 stands, if you want to call them the Rangers end and the Celtic end at Hampden, are terrible for atmosphere. The rake is terrible. We've talked to us before on the show that down in the bottom 10 rows, you're almost below the goals.
Yeah. And
people have just said, I'm not going there.
Yeah. I don't think you can blame fans for that. If you're a season ticket holder
and you've bought your season ticket in good faith.
Yeah, absolutely. Then I can completely understand why Rangers fans are annoyed about it. But there's no doubt it's affecting the team. There's no doubt that it's something that Rangers as a club have to look at.
Well, it was interesting. We ran the stuff.
It's a big intake of breath.
It was a big, because I was just about to say we ran stuff in the paper on Tuesday. Where Ali McCoy's been talking in Talk Sport about feeling that the club is leaderless, which brings us back to another story from the Robert Grieve canon.
Okay, canon, did you say?
Canon, C-A-N-O-N. It means means your body of work, Robert.
Right, okay. Jim Gillespie you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah, that's an ongoing one. I'm led to believe. It's not quite over the line yet, but unless things change dramatically in the next few days, then I believe that Jim Gillespie, the vice chairman of St Mirren, director of a charity in Paisley, the Kibble, is going to be the new chief executive of Rangers. And I don't know Jim Gillespie very well at all, but it strikes me as someone that could go in there, and he's going to have to go in there and do something, because as you say, leadership is what Rangers need at the minute, or what they lack at the minute, I think, behind the scenes. Yeah,
I wrote my column about this on Monday off the back of that story. I have a lot of admiration for Jim Gillespie. I think he's done really well with the Kibble as chief executive. If you don't know the Kibble, they're a charity in the Paisley area who work with kids who have had problems with the law and with broken homes, etc. And they do some fantastic work. And he's come in as part of the Kibble's part ownership with St Mirren. He's vice chairman. I think he's a very strong character around the club. I think he'd be a big loss to
He's got
St
a great
Mirren.
Relationship with Stephen Robinson.
Yes,
so I think it would be a
blow
for Stephen Robinson if he was to go, or when he goes. So
do you know
that shows you? That shows you that he's got a working relationship with the manager of a football club. That's not always the case, And
I know that he does have emotional attachment to Rangers, which makes it a big pull for him. When I wrote my column the other day, my feeling was that if you were applying for the job description there is at Rangers at the moment, but it wasn't for a football club that you liked, it was for any other business, you'd be very worried by what you were inheriting and the amount of problems you had to take on and what resources you would have to sort them. Because at the moment you look at crowds, the client base is kind of drifting away. You've got massive problems at your headquarters, if you want to call it that. Your staff continually missing targets. And yet they've rewarded a key employee in Philippe Clement with an extended contract, even though so far he hasn't delivered.
I wouldn't read too much into the contract thing, Bill. For me, that was just perception. That was just to get something out there.
But I think the perception it puts out, I'm not sure a lot of fans took it as positivity. I think a lot of them said, wait a minute, well, the guy's not done anything yet. We like him. He's a good guy.
I don't know about that. I think there was a bit of noise there. Chris Boyd wrote a column in our paper talking about how he wondered if Clement was maybe looking at his own position and getting a bit.
And that's a statement that says no, he's not.
It was a statement to say he's not. So
absolutely.
I get it,
but you know what I mean, though.
It's not significantly more money. No. It's not. He was not a decent length of contract.
It's just to put rumours to bed, isn't it? Right. So that's fine. So leave that one aside. But if you're the new chief executive of any company that has the amount of internal problems Rangers have, you need to have a guarantee that you're going to have the resources and the backing, because you can't do it on your own. Because if you're left to do it on your own, you're just going to be the guy that takes a rap when it goes wrong, as we've seen with Bisgrove.
Yeah.
He's now the guy who's away, and they're all going, "Oh, it was Bisgrove's fault." You know, it seems to be all kind of
Bisgrove and Michael Beale.
Michael Beale. Well, Michael Beale has that could be a podcast in its own one day. My thoughts on Michael Beale, but James Bisgrove is now, rightly or wrongly, again, you might know more about this than I do, your day-to-day involvement in the kind of news side of things, but he seems to be now the guy. Well, he's the kind of bogeyman for a lot of stuff that's happened.
Well, yeah, I mean, listen, he was in charge when they were ordering the steel.
Yeah.
And if you're a chief executive of a football club like Rangers, then you're given that authority to go and do that. And I think they get the John Bennett's our directors were kind of blindsided when he when we revealed he was on his way, and
whose story was that?
And he left.
Was that yours?
So yeah, they were surprised by that. They were surprised by that, and he's we've not seen him for dust.
No, absolutely. So
or sand.
So if I would genuinely wish Jim Gillespie all the very best if he goes, because I think he's an excellent man. I think he's a guy who understands football, who understands people, who's won a myriad of awards for his work with the kids through the kibble, and I think he'd be a great man for any organisation to have. But I like him, and I would worry what happens in there.
Well, we'll see how that one pans out. As I say, I think there should be probably some further news of that probably by the end of the week, if not start of next week. But we'll see how that pans out.
If we talk it now about other, let's not stay on negative stuff all the time. However, Hearts.
Hearts have got a big, huge European
I saw Hearts on Saturday at Falkirk, where Robbie Nielsen. He's the last one.
It's not Robbie Nielsen.
Stephen A. Smith in a time machine. His team had lost 3-1 at Dundee the week before. He made 8 changes against Falkirk. Didn't bring in kids. It wasn't like resting players before a Europe. He brought in good players, and they were absolutely taken apart with Falkirk. They were. I mean, they should have had the game won before half time, but they missed chances. And then after that, Falkirk took them to bits. And the mood of Stephen Naismith and of Craig Gordon, I spoke to him after the game, was very, very low. And they go into this European tie now. And if they don't get a good result against Victoria Pilsen on Thursday night, there's going to be a lot of grumbling there.
Yeah, well, that's a Europa League playoff.
Yeah.
They're guaranteed European football, group stage football. Anyway, if they lose this tie, they go into the Conference League groups. So they've got that kind of banked that. It's kind
that's your speedboat.
That's in the bank. You've got that, but yeah, is there pressure on? Listen, the job that Stephen Naismith did last season.
I'm not sure the way Hearts work that there's pressure on Stephen Naismith. However, not internally.
Fans who are always just waiting to pounce, and they know who they are. They're always just waiting to pounce.
So I know the same ones.
They're always just waiting to pounce with Stephen Naismith.
Yeah.
And when you lose to Dundee, you lose to Kelly,
and it's
Kelly, you lose to
Falkirk. But it's the way they're losing as well. They're very. There's a weakness, and there's a. If I could have a criticism of Hearts recruitment, it's that they sign a lot of players, but there's a much of a muchness there. There's nobody who's coming in who's changing them upwardly. And again, we talk about what happens if Celtic lose Kyogo. If Hearts were to lose Shankland, as every transfer window now he's talked about.
Yeah, that one's going a bit quiet though, isn't it?
Yeah, but they have nothing behind them. They played Liam Boyce up front, who, with the best will in the world, has come back from a lot of injuries and isn't the same player he was. And after that, there isn't a striker.
No, but you could argue that with most clubs, if they lose their best player, then they're going to.
Yeah, but
it's
not
a big drop off.
But Hearts have a better budget than if outside Rangers Celtic. Hearts have a better budget probably than anybody. And they have a big backroom. They have a big network in there of recruitment and coaching staff. And I think they could have done much better, as comfortably as they were.
Yeah, I just think I just feel Stephen Naismith, he's done a good job there. Don't care what anyone says. Hearts were the best or the third best team in the country last season, probably by a distance.
Big challenge this year with Aberdeen coming back.
Yeah, probably. But I still, right now, if you were asking me, I think Hearts will be third place. I don't think there's any doubt about it. And I think if they were to even consider changing manager, if they were to get under a bit of pressure, I think that would be a bad choice.
Well, again, they've just extended Stephen and Gordon Forrest and McAvoy's contracts.
Yeah.
So they're not under any pressure internally.
No, but it could very quickly.
But things do unravel quickly.
Dun United at home at the weekend. If they lose to Pils and they lose to Dun United, then you know how the mood music changes at times.
Absolutely.
And I think they have to. I think Naismith's done a good job.
Yeah. Thursday night's massive for them, though.
Yeah,
massive.
It is, but I say they've got Europa League football. They earned that right from their performances last season, their results last season where they finished up. So if they end up playing Conference League football from now until the turn of the year, then there's a lot of good optimism there at Hearts.
And there's a lot more money in it as well. There's a couple of million quid in that for them.
And Hearts will go again. But Kelly are another team. I mean, what a result they got from Tromsø last week. Fantastic. No, you were in Bergen. St Mirren didn't quite do it, albeit they gave it everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
But Kelly, it was phenomenal, wasn't it? They go away from home. I thought they'd maybe it was going to be too much for them given the way the first leg went, but they get that away goal. They defend for their lives, and the scenes after the match with Derek McInnes and his backroom boys and the players, it was phenomenal.
You can't, it's great, isn't it? You can't buy that. But I mean, in Bergen, there was a moment when St Mirren equalised when it just was, you just thought this is going to happen, and it didn't quite happen. And then you get the Kelly result, and you think, if only both teams had got through. I wrote at the weekend there after the Bergen game about how hard it is now for any middling Scottish club, the kind of 4th, 5th in the table, to come through all these qualifying games and sustain a domestic run as well. And I think Kelly have obviously started to see that as well, because they were seriously talking about trying to get the Aberdeen game this weekend postponed. They decided not to, because I think they were basically told there's not a chance of it happening.
Given a bit of steer behind the scenes.
But it's tough. It is tough if you are. You can. If you're a team like Hearts that can make 8 changes on a Saturday, Aberdeen are now getting towards that kind of position. I don't think anybody else can do that. And
we saw it with St Mirren, didn't we? They come back from the European Dun United.
Yeah.
They make changes. It was great to see young Fraser Taylor. Boy, I've been watching the academy for a number of years now.
He's a good player.
Talent.
But there's, I mean, Philip Clement's talked about with Rangers. Celtic managers have talked over the years. Stephen Robinson talked about it. Bergen were given the weekend off last weekend by the Norwegian FA.
Do you think it should happen then? Do you think Kelly should have been able to go to the SPFL and say, Aberdeen at the weekend?
I don't think
should they be backed?
I don't think anybody should have to go to the SPFL or the SFA. I think it should be agreed in advance that, if necessary, the machinery is there to move games around. Because if we want our teams to do better in Europe, if we want our coefficient to go up, if we want the game status to rise, we have to try and give the teams as much backing. But there's St Mirren, they play Bergen at home on the Thursday, they go to Aberdeen on the Sunday, there's the travelling to Aberdeen and back, they go over to Norway on the Wednesday, they play on the Thursday, they come back, they go to Dundee on the Sunday. Now, had they gone through, it would have been Thursday night at home to Astana of Kazakhstan, Celtic at home on the Sunday, and then 7,000 mile round trip to Kazakhstan. So I think we're asking too much of teams with limited squads and budgets.
But the SPFL will argue and tell us that the scope to move fixtures just isn't there. That there's a backlog, and if you do it with one team, you need to do it with all the teams, and before you know it.
But the thing is, but you're only talking about 4 teams. You're not talking about everybody.
No, but it's 4 teams who are playing 4 other teams.
Yeah, but also it's not
playing the 4 teams.
But it's not going to happen forever. It's not. I think what we have to decide is, do we want to back our teams in Europe, or are they just on their own until they go out?
Yeah.
That's what we need to decide.
Yeah, it was certainly.
And I really wish Kelly all the best, because they deserve all the success.
What do you think? Copenhagen and
I think
Copenhagen
to Kelly might be the same as Brann were to St Mirren, just that little bit.
Step too far.
A little bit quicker, a little bit more physical. They've more experience at European level. St Mirren hung on and did brilliantly in both ties, and then in the last 5-10 minutes in Bergen it just ran away from him. And I kind of get the same feeling about Kelly and Copenhagen, but I really hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, well, they're away from home first.
Yeah.
Getting McDonald's over in wonderful Copenhagen.
And I look forward to more of Kenny's magnificent videos.
Yeah, we've always been doing great. And I actually think that's a good thing. They're away from home first.
Yes, definitely.
Get a result that keeps them in the tie.
Yeah.
Coming back.
Nobody wants to go to Rugby Park.
And the place will be jumping.
Absolutely.
They'll be hanging for the rafters, and it'll be great. Hopefully they get through. So we wish Kelly well. We're just about there this week, Bill. It's been great to have you back.
Yes, I have missed you.
I enjoyed
this.
I enjoyed Boydie's company and I enjoyed David Field's company. But what do we make of this?
I mean, that's just...
we're in Bella Vita, as we said earlier on. Mimo, my good friend, has looked after us royally. And I think we've got about everything, Bill.
We have little custard danishes. We've got strawberry tarts. We've got what my mum used to call cream cookies. I don't know what we used to call them, little sort of brioche things with cream and jam in them. And we've got little Italian flags. Mimo's from Naples, and he's got a beautiful place here. If you ever get a chance to come in here, it is absolutely stuffed with football shirts, signed shirts, pictures. It's like a little football museum. It's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. What are you going to go for cake-wise?
All of the above.
All of the above. Well, Roger Hanna's asked me to take some back into the office. So
aye, right.
We'll need to sort that one. Anyway, that's done for Coffee Club this week. Great chat. As ever, we'll look to see how things develop. We're talking about Kyogo earlier on, how that goes with Manchester City. To keep with the paper online over the next day or two. See how that pans out. And everything else that's going on, we'll keep you up to date. But for now, I'm going to go for one of these, Bill.
I'm a strawberry tart, man.
Strawberry, yeah. You like a tart. There we go.
Ciao.
All the best.
See you next week.